About 20,000 years ago, on a freezing night, a human sits beside a fire. Behind them lies darkness, and in that darkness, eyes are glowing. A wolf, hungry, dangerous, wild. But tonight it will not attack. Tonight it will only watch, wait, and maybe come a little closer. This was the moment the world's oldest friendship began to take root. Think about it. An animal that once tore through its prey, an animal humans feared as their greatest enemy, now sleeps in our beds, plays with our children, protects us, loves us. How did the wolf become the dog? The question sounds simple, but the truth is that scientists, geneticists, and archaeologists still haven't fully solved this mystery. In this video, we're taking you through humanity's oldest and strangest journey, one where a wild predator became our most loyal companion. This is humanity's oldest secret. Let's start by understanding just how old this story really is. Most people assume the dog is something humans made, the way we learn to grow wheat or raise sheep. But the truth is very different. Farming began roughly 10,000 years ago, but the dog had already become our companion long before that, at least 15 to 40,000 years ago, back when humans were still hunter-gatherers. That makes the dog the very first animal humans ever domesticated, and it happened at a time when we didn't even have permanent homes. We were still nomads. Stop and think about how strange that is. Humans hadn't built farms yet, hadn't tamed any other animals yet, but somehow formed a bond with a wild, dangerous predator, the wolf. In Germany, at a site called Bonn Oberkassel, archaeologists found one of the oldest pieces of evidence for this bond, a grave roughly 14,200 years old, where two humans and a dog, yes, a dog, not a wolf, were buried together. That dog's teeth showed signs of illness, suggesting it couldn't have hunted for itself in its final weeks. And yet, someone had cared for it. Someone kept it alive. This wasn't just an animal being used. This was compassion. Here's the real question. The wolf is a dangerous hunter, one that attacks in packs, one that sees humans as a threat. So how did it change so completely that today it's part of our families? There are three major theories. The first is human-led domestication. The old idea was that ancient humans captured wolf pups, raised them by hand, and gradually tamed them, the same way we selectively breed dogs today. But this theory has a major weakness. Hand-raising a wolf pup isn't easy. Even raised with care, wolves can remain dangerous as adults. Ancient humans simply didn't have the resources to keep repeating such a risky experiment. The second theory is more widely accepted, self-domestication. Here's how the story goes. Around ancient human camps, there was always food waste lying around. Bones, leftover meat. Some wolves, the ones that were naturally less fearful and didn't panic around humans, began eating these scraps. Now think about it. The wolves that were less aggressive, the ones that didn't flee from humans, got more food. More food meant better survival and more offspring. Generation after generation, these calmer wolves became more successful, and the wilder ones either stayed away from humans or were killed off. This was natural selection, but it was happening inside a human environment. There's also a remarkable scientific experiment that helps explain all of this. In 1959, a Soviet scientist named Dmitry Belyaev began an experiment that is still running today. He took silver foxes and selected them based on exactly one trait, tameness. In every generation, only the foxes that showed the least fear around humans were allowed to breed. Every other trait, size, color, strength, was ignored. Within just a few generations, something extraordinary happened. The foxes' ears began to flop, their tails curled, white patches appeared in their fur. They started playing with humans, wagging their tails, barking, behaving exactly like dogs. All of this happened because of just one thing, selecting for tameness. This tells us that when an animal is selected purely for being less fearful and more friendly, its physical appearance starts changing too, without anyone intending it. This is called domestication syndrome. Something similar likely happened with wolves, except the change unfolded over thousands of years, driven by nature itself, not by any deliberate human plan. Modern science has added even more depth to this story. Geneticists have compared the DNA of dogs and wolves, and the findings are astonishing. First, the common ancestor of dogs and today's wolves wasn't the same as modern wolves. In other words, the wolves we see today aren't the direct grandparents of dogs. Instead, both dogs and modern wolves descended from a shared, now extinct ancestral population that existed roughly 20 to 40,000 years ago. This means the story is even older and more complex than we once thought. Second, and even more remarkable, certain genes found in dogs are directly linked to human-like social behavior. There's a gene associated in humans with Williams-Beuren syndrome, a condition that makes people unusually friendly and sociable. This same gene appears in dogs, and it may explain their extraordinary ability to bond with humans. Think about that. Dogs carry a genetic change that essentially wires them to love humans. This isn't something learned through training, it's written into their blood, into their DNA. That's why, when you look into your dog's eyes and it looks back into yours, both of your brains release oxytocin, the same bonding hormone released between a mother and her child. This kind of connection between humans and dogs doesn't exist with any other animal. Not with cats, not with any other pet, at least not this intensely. So, where did all of this actually begin? The honest answer is that it's still debated. Some scientists point to Europe, others to Central Asia, and some consider East Asia the oldest site. But the most interesting possibility is that it may not have happened in just one place. Perhaps at different times in different regions, separate human groups independently grew close to their own local wolf populations, and these separate bonds eventually merged together. In other words, this wasn't a single invention. It was a natural, gradual, and possibly repeated story that quietly unfolded over thousands of years, among thousands of people and thousands of wolves. Now we get to the real question behind this video's title. Why is this called humanity's oldest secret? Because this story doesn't just tell us about dogs, it tells us about ourselves. Think about it. The dog was the first animal humans ever brought into their lives, before farming, before permanent homes, before civilization itself. That means humans possessed a very specific capability from the very beginning, the ability to build trust with another species. That same capability is what later allowed us to build villages, cities, and entire civilizations. This relationship with the dog may have been humanity's very first training ground, learning how to cooperate with another living being, how to trust it. The dog didn't just become a hunting partner, it warned humans of danger before it struck. It helped in the hunt, it protected children, it provided warmth in the cold. And perhaps most importantly, it gave humans the feeling that they were no longer alone. And in return, humans gave it something back: food, protection, and for the first time ever given to any animal, love. This is a bond that still exists today, thousands of years later, just as strong as ever. Today, there are more than 340 dog breeds around the world, from the smallest to the largest. Every single one of them carries DNA that traces back to that same ancient wolf lineage. This diversity itself is proof of how deep the bond between humans and this animal became, deep enough that we reshaped it into every size and shape imaginable, for hunting, for guarding, or simply for companionship. But behind every one of these breeds lies the same basic instinct that first awakened in that ancient wolf who dared to step closer to the fire. The instinct of belonging, the instinct of loyalty. When your dog runs to greet you at the door, when it senses your sadness and comes to sit beside you, when it curls up at your feet at night, it is actually replaying that same 20,000-year-old moment, the same trust, the same love. So the next time you look at your dog, take a moment to really think about it. It isn't just a pet. It is living proof of humanity's oldest and most beautiful friendship. A friendship that began before civilization itself, in the forests, around the fire, between eyes glowing in the dark. Thousands of years ago, one animal decided to trust a human, and the human made the same choice in return. And to this day, that trust, that bond, has never been broken. Perhaps this is the secret that makes us most human: the ability to build a relationship of love and trust with a creature completely different from ourselves. The wolf didn't just become a dog, the wolf showed us what we are capable of becoming. If you have a dog, tell us its name in the comments.